Hey guys, thank you for tuning in to Mumu Outdoors. This is a part 2 of my buddy Ryan Cook's seminar. This video, he talks about some money baits and he gets into really good stuff. He gets into how to bet fish like a pro and how to catch a giant like this while bet fishing. If you haven't checked out part 1 yet, you really want to check it out. He talks about best lures for the springtime and the techniques and how to use them. So stay tuned and enjoy the seminar.
Money baits really quick. 5, 6, and 7 inch Senko. Your 5 and 6 inch in the springtime, I typically like to wacky rig them. I put them on a weighted head, like a 1/16 up to a 1/8 ounce wacky head. Hook them right through the center. If you want to mess with the O-rings to save your baits, that's fine. I don't, because your hookup ratio always goes down a little bit. A lot of guys fish these really slow, and I don't. I fish them really fast because I want to make as many casts with that thing in a day as I possibly can. I want to make as many drops as I can. So typically I'm going to throw it out. Most guys work a single, right? They throw it out, hits the bottom, kind of shake, shake, let it fall. Shake, shake, let it fall. Maybe a little drag, shake, shake. Well, it takes a minute to do one cast. I'm going to keep the motor on about 30 or 40 if I'm not sight fishing, if I'm not visually trying to find these fish. And I'm going to fire that thing as far in front of the boat as I can. I'm going to let it hit the bottom. I'm going to rip it up 2 or 3 times really quick, let it hit the bottom, and make another cast. One cast with a Senko is going to take me probably 10 to 15 seconds versus 30 seconds to a minute with most people. Because you want those odds in your favor. Again, most of these big fish are not going to look at the Senko coming down, watch it, stare at it, watch it, stare at it, and then decide to eat it. It's going to fall in front of their face. They're either going to eat it or they're not, and they're going to go on their way. If it's a bigger one, I'm not talking 2-pounders, we're talking big bites in the spring. So you can get a giant bite on a 5 inch Senko, but you can increase your odds by fishing it faster. Does that make sense? Cover as much water with this thing as you can, for what that's worth. Now, this is a little bit different deal when you go up to the 7 inch Senko. I've just been informed Yamamoto makes bigger ones. I didn't even know that. I'm going to be ordering them really soon. But if you go to a 7 inch Senko, and I'm going to pass the 5 and the 6 around, and then I'm going to pass the 7 around, and you'll see the difference. It's like on a whole nother level. The 7 inch Senko, I'm going to Texas rig it. I'm not going to wacky rig it because it's got so much plastic, it's so heavy. When you try to wacky rig this, you're going to get about 8 casts in it, and it's going to just rip. And these things are like $2 a piece. They're not cheap. 7 inch Senko, I'm going to put it on ideally a 6/0 EWG hook, or just a regular round bin worm hook. 6/0, 7/0 works. 5/0 will get the job done. You don't want to go less than a 5/0. It's just too much plastic. This thing I'm going to throw on heavier line. The 5 and the 6 inch I'm going to throw anywhere from bait caster, spinner rod, I don't care, but I'm going to throw it 6 to 10 pound fluorocarbon typically. I'm talking the lakes. This I'm going to throw minimum 15. There's no need to go lighter. And I'm going to fish this a lot slower because this same as a Huddleston, it's a bigger meal. This is worth a 10-pounder's time to eat. That little stuff, they just want it out of their way, whatever. This is a meal that they can justify eating. They can spend their time on it. There's enough calories, enough protein in something like this to eat it. I'm gonna do a lot of dead sticking. This 7 inch Senko, I love to throw it out. And I'm not gonna just blind cast. This is more, if I'm throwing that glide bait, right, I'm throwing that S-Waver, I get a giant to follow it out, I know where she came from, I'm going to come back in 30 minutes, I'm going to throw this thing on her rock pile, on her tree, on her piece of cover, her home, and I'm going to let it sit, man, and I'm just going to let it sit, I'm going to let it sit till I can't stand it, and then I'm going to move it a foot or two, and I'm going to let it sit some more. My little cousin won a tournament up at McClure last springtime, and they absolutely caught some studs, but they had 2 big ones come up on a glide bait. They boated one of them. It was like a 7.5. They dumped one about 5 or 6, but they knew with the fish that followed them in, they knew what lived down there. They saw some big ones. And he's a smart kid, and he picked up a 7 inch Senko. He fired it out there in open water. It was about 30 foot deep, but he knew where the rock pile was. He knew where they came up from. And he fired this thing out there, and he dead stuck it for about 2 minutes. He caught another 7.5. Another cast after this, after another minute of dead sticking it on the bottom, he broke one off that he said was way bigger. So don't ever underestimate the power of a 7 inch Senko not moving on the bottom, because it is a powerful, powerful tool, guys. I'm telling you, powerful tool. Here's the wacky head I throw, and I also throw a 5-inch Cinco and a 6-inch Cinco on just a shaky head a lot. Most guys do not throw a Cinco on a shaky head. It's a great way to cover water. It falls fast. It gets bigger bites. Very, very, very effective. So both of these is how I'm rigging a Cinco in the spring. Other than that 7-inch, which I'm going to Texas rig weightless. And when I say Texas rig, it's just a worm hook and you're going to hook it weedless. The shaky head I do throw with a Cinco a lot. 6-inch worms, 8-inch worms are great. That Zoom Magnum trick worm, just a little bit beefier, a little bit bulkier. It's not real big, but that's a great bait in the springtime. That's what we caught a lot of them on today. Also a Carolina rig. Does anybody here not know what a Carolina rig is? Everybody knows? Have one tied on in the springtime. It's a great search tool. You put a 1/2 ounce, 3/4 ounce weight. Like a lot of guys like to go 1 ounce. I'm not a big 1 ounce fan. I like to go 1/2 ounce. I'm throwing it on like a jig rod. You can cover a ton of water. You just sweep that rod, drag it. Another good thing is when you're up shallow looking for bedfish, which we're going to talk about here in 1 second, you throw that thing out behind the boat, and with that heavier weight, you can drag it out there in 10, 12 foot of water while you're looking for bedfish, and I catch a ton of big ones doing that too. One thing I got to touch on a little bit is the underspin. We've been catching a lot of good ones on underspins lately. We've been catching a lot of numbers, more importantly, on the underspin, and it's a bait you can throw through suspended fish. You can slow roll it on the bottom. Typically, I fish it on the bottom. I like to keep it slow, in contact, through the cover. I'm fishing this in the same areas I'm fishing the other baits, but some days they want something moving, they want something with a little flash. The nice thing about this underspin is typically when I'm fishing in the spring, I got my boat shallow. I'm in 10 foot of water, give or take. I'm going to parallel the bank. I'm going this way. The bank is here, and I'm throwing straight in front of the boat or slightly at the bank this way. The nice thing with this underspin is if I'm fishing it down the bank, all of a sudden there's a 4-pounder on a bed right here. And I'm not sure if that fish is locked on. I'm not sure what she's going to do. This underspin, let me put the swim bait on here so you see what it looks like. This is a great bait because I'm usually throwing this on 15-pound fluorocarbon this time of year because I'm not fishing it real deep. I don't need lighter line. This is a great bait to pitch to a bedfish. Something about that blade on there, nobody talks about this, probably for good reason. Something about that blade on there with a bedfish, it fires them up. They don't like it. I mean, it pisses them off. They don't like that thing. And that's what an underspin looks like, guys. It's got a 4.8 Kitech on there. Strike King makes a good one. What's the Strike King one called?
Rage Swimmer.
The Rage Swimmer. That's a good one. I'm not particular to any brand. 1/4 ounce. I like a bigger blade than this, but this will get the job done. But the nice thing about this, I can cover a ton of water. It's going to get a lot of bites. It's going to get big bites. And then if I see a bedfish, it's a great bait to pitch it at. I don't have to get down here and get my bed fishing rod, especially if I just want to check this fish, see if she's locked on, see if she's going to stick around the bed, whatever. Does that make sense? So I'm going to pass this underspin around. This is on my boat, usually 12 months out of the year, but especially in the warmer months, from now all the way through the fall. And it's a great bed fishing bait. I know I've said that 3 times, but guys, I'm telling you, that is a great bed fishing bait that does not get talked about at all. How many of you guys have caught a bedfish? Almost everybody?
Sure.
If not, have you seen a bedfish? Do you know what it looks like when a bass is spawning? Okay, so we don't need to go into what a bed looks like. Let's go into how to find them and how to target them. Now, there's 2 ways to do it. The old school way is you get on that trolling motor, you put it on high, or you even have a guy on the big motor and you're covering as much water as you can. I used to do that, but the problem is with bedfish, it's a high risk, high reward type situation. It's very easy to go out, and it happened to me at Maloney's last year, man. It drove me crazy. I actually camped out on the fish all night long. I didn't even go home. It was stupid. Never got her to bite one time. No, I'm not even joking. I had a tournament on Saturday. I called the guy, I canceled. I stayed out all night long to fish this fish, and the next day, and I never got her to bite one time, but I have a problem when it comes to bed fishing. What I like to do nowadays is I like to put my trolling motor on about 40%, about halfway up on the throttle, and I like to fish while I'm looking. And it just, at least that way I'm going to catch some fish along the way. If I find a giant on a bed, I've already caught a few fish, I can spend some time with it. If you're in a tournament, at least you're going to give yourself an opportunity to weigh in some fish when you find that big one. Because if you're anything like me and you find a big one on a bed, if it's over 7 pounds, my team partner right there, my cousin, can tell you, I won't leave him. I mean, I just won't. Like he gets on me, I can't leave a bedfish. I mean, I spend so many hours looking for this fish, and I can tell she's not ready to go. She's not ready to bite, but I'm not going to leave her. It drives me crazy when you can't catch them. Now, when you spend 4 hours on them, then you finally catch them, it feels pretty good. But the key is, what I'm trying to say is keep covering water as quickly as you can while you're still fishing. Throw baits in front of the boat that you can cover a lot of water with. Rip bait, glide bait, spinner bait. That shaky head Cinco, it falls really fast. That's a great bait to fire in front of the boat while you're looking for bedfish. You can fish it fast. A jig, whatever you can make long casts with and get to the bottom fairly quickly, fish that in front of the boat. And more often than not, I mean, you're going to catch a big one on that before you see a big one on the bed. It happens all the time. I just love bed fishing. It's exciting. Bed fishing baits. I'm not going to talk about the little stuff so much. All I'm going to say is, if you've never seen a bedfish, typically what happens is you're going to fire a few casts out there and you're going to get an idea of that fish's temperament. And I'm going to call it a she because most of the bigger ones are females, so I'm going to refer to it as a she. So when she starts to get fired up, she's going to start spinning circles. She's going to look at your bait. She's going to pay attention to it. When they get really fired up, they stand on their nose like this and they start getting mad, and that's when you know these fish are getting ready to eat. Now, typically, if they're not super aggressive, and when my little cousin caught that 16-pounder, he threw a little 4-inch swim bait in there. She bit it on the first cast. He stuck her and lost her. He did that 2 casts in a row. On his 5th or 6th cast, he hooked that fish and caught her. 16-pounder. That's not the norm. A fish like that usually is going to take at least 30 minutes to get it to bite. Sometimes it's going to take 2 or 3 hours. And the key is, when you start to get these fish agitated, you don't want to give them any downtime. The more angry she gets, the more casts you need to make, the more aggressive you need to make your bait look in front of her. If a fish is really aggressive, you don't want to throw a big bait on it. You want to throw a paddle tail swim bait. You want to throw a Texas rig Cinco. You want to throw something they can get in their mouth really easily. If she's being stubborn, which is more often than not the case, a lot of guys don't like people talking about this, but I'm going to give you guys the honest truth on what I do. 8-inch Huddleston is your best friend ever when it comes to catching a giant on a bed. You don't want to catch them on this bait, though. That's the deal. You do not want to hook them on this bait. This is going to upset her so bad. It's amazing the drawing power of this bait. You can have an 8-pounder on a bed, and you see her, and she's locked on, and you throw a bait in there. Usually she's going to cruise off nice and slow. She's going to sit out there. Now, you're not going to see her, but she's just out of sight, and she's staring at the bed at that bait. They're smart. These fish have done this for years. They've been caught, most of them. They've seen boats. They've seen people bed fishing, and they know what to stay away from. You fire this thing in there, and that same fish that will not come up, now this is not a guarantee, but most of the time, she's going to come up and nose up to this bait within about 10 seconds, sometimes 5. It might take 30. You really, really want to upset them with this bait. I cannot stress this enough. You do not want to stick that fish on this bait. Even if you get a 12-pounder that picks this up and she's swimming off to deep water, do not set the hook. You're going to lose that fish 8 out of 10 times. They don't eat it when they're on the bed. They don't eat a Huddleston like they do the rest of the year when they're trying to actually eat it to swallow it. They want this bait off of their beds. It's not going to be in the roof of her mouth. It's going to be hooked on the side. She's going to come up. She's going to shake that big giant head a couple times, and this bait's going to come flying out. It's happened to me so many times. Talking about it literally makes me sick to my stomach. I'm not even joking. Use this to upset them. If you're in a team tournament situation, you want one guy throwing this with the expectation that he's never going to set the hook on that fish, which is hard to do if a 10-pounder chokes this down. You don't want to set the hook. It's the worst mistake you can make. If you hook that fish, she pulls off, you're probably not going to catch her again that day, most likely if it's a big one. You want the other guy throwing another bait, but you don't want him throwing that bait until she's really mad at this bait. Does that make sense? Keep working her with this thing. When have the other guy in the back of the boat, blind casting a Cinco, whatever. When she starts getting hot, then you tell him, okay, it's time. You throw this thing in there, you get her attention on this, you leave it on the bed, and there's usually a sweet spot on the bed, something you guys will figure out. We don't have time to talk about all that. Once she's fired up on this thing, leave it in there. You throw this little guy, this little paddle tail swim bait, on a half-ounce swim bait head, on an underspin, and you don't drag it. You throw it out and you slow roll it right towards her. It's going to get close to her and she's going to eat that thing. And that's when you swing. And if you've never fought a big fish on a bed, get by with throw as heavy a line as you possibly can. If they'll hit it on braided line, throw it on braided line. If not, throw it on minimum 20-pound fluorocarbon. I'm talking a big fish. When you set the hook on that fish, it's just like catching a fish on a Huddleston. That guy who's not catching the fish, he needs to be down on one knee with that net ready to go, and you're going to swing on that fish and you're going to grind her straight to the net. If you let her turn her head, if they jump, they jump. You can't stop them from jumping. You don't want her to turn her head. If you let her turn her head, you're going to lose that fish 40% of the time, 50% of the time. You cannot let her turn her head on you. As long as you keep her coming at you, and that guy's there with the net, you ski her into the net, 20-pound fluorocarbon, you can't break it on a straight pull with a bass. A bass is not going to break. If you have good 20-pound fluorocarbon with no nick in it, and you know how to tie a good knot with fluorocarbon, a bass will not break 20-pound fluorocarbon if you keep her coming at you. It's impossible. They cannot do it. So, any questions on that? I know that's kind of a lot. If you're not a bed fisherman, it may not make sense to you. I'm hoping it does. The other bait I'm going to talk about is the good old Tora tube. A lot of you people that are newer to bass fishing don't know about a Tora tube. Hey Scott, like, you ever heard of the Tora tube?
No, sir.
This is old school stuff right here, guys. Ish Monroe won, was it Amistad? Thank you. I got my encyclopedia over there. He won Amistad bed fishing with this bait, and it is a killer bait. And I think he was actually throwing the bigger one. They make one bigger than this, don't they, Wes? I think they make a bigger one.
You know what? Now you roll that one up. Yeah, just a little bit.
I think they do. So this looks stupid, right? This big giant tube. This is a saltwater bait. This is a 12-aught owner beast hook right here. This thing is gigantic. It's huge. This is what you need for this bait. If you get a big giant on a bed that will not pay attention to a smaller bait, and you want to catch it on a bigger bait that you can actually swing on it, this is the bait to go to. This is not something you're going to throw on your 2 and 3 pounders. This is something you're going to throw on that big giant bass. Big giant 12-aught hook. Now, an 8-aught to a 12-aught will get the job done with this tube. With the bigger Tora tube, they do make a bigger one. You want that 12-aught hook. You want minimum 65-pound braid. You want an 8-foot flipping stick, even a swim bait rod. And again, you're going to crack these things, and I mean, you're not going to open that hook up. That's the nice thing. Once you stick them, they're going to come to the net 9 out of 10 times, if 19 out of 20 times. This is something that does not get talked about, guys. These big giant tubes. It's old school. Nobody does it anymore. Everybody's all on the finessey side. You know, oh, I'm going to drop shot 6-pound test. In case you can't tell, I'm not even talking about spinning rods and bedfish because I don't do it. I do not believe that there is a bedfish out there that will only bite a finesse bait with 6-pound test because they're not eating the. It's not how this works. Shaw Grigsby's made a career out of bed fishing with a spinning rod, and he's good at it. But I don't think it's because he's using light line. I think that's just his confidence, and it works for him, but it's more his technique. You don't need to go light line on bedfish. The lightest I'll ever go is 15-pound fluorocarbon. Unless I'm having fun. I mean, like, you get a bunch of 2 and 3 pounders, yeah. Throw a little dart head, throw a drop shot out with 6-pound test and have some fun. I've caught a 13-pounder, a 13-2 at McClure on a drop shot 6-pound test on a bed, but I didn't know it was a bed fish at the time. So that's another story. Bigger stuff, bigger fish, bigger stuff, bigger hooks, bigger line, bigger rod, everything. Put the odds in your favor because those fish don't come around very often, and you don't want to hook it on a spinner rod, 8-pound test, and there's 2 trees here, and she wraps you up 4 times around both of them, you know, because they're just going to handle you. A big bass on a bed especially is so strong. They fight harder in the spring than they do any other time of year, and a big 10, 12-pound fish on a bed is going to pull way harder than you realize. It's a powerful fish, and they're up there, they're agitated, they're aggressive, and they're pissed off you hooked them. They don't like it, and even more so because they fight harder, trust me. I'm going to pass that around. For a weight, I would do like ideally a 1/2 to a 3/4 ounce tungsten bullet weight. I want a small weight that sinks really fast. And that's another key to this bed fishing, guys. And I'm talking about bed fishing so much because typically in the spring, if I'm looking for a giant bite, I'm looking for that fish. I want to see them. I want to put the odds in my favor. I'm not going to even make a cast I'm not going to make a cast at that fish till I find the right one. I'm going to pass up 4, 5, and 6 pounders until I find a 10 because you can catch a lot of 4 to 6, 7 pounders the rest of the year. All right, well, once again, guys, thank you all for coming out, man. I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. If you don't, I mean, most of you probably have me on Facebook. If not, go check out my Facebook, please. It's Ryan Cook. I've got a Facebook and a business page. Ryan Cook Fishing is my business page. go give that a like, man. I really, really appreciate it. It helps me out. Instagram, it's Ryan Cook Fishing. I passed out some cards earlier. If anybody has any questions, just let me know. And like I said, if you need help finding any of this stuff in the store, Wes right here, assistant manager, he'll help you out. I'm in here all the time. I can help you out, whatever you need. Tim's back there. If you have questions, I'll stick around for a little while. So whatever you guys need, just let me know. Thank you guys. I appreciate it.